Okay, everybody. Hello and welcome. This is Committee of the Whole. It is October 4th, 2022, 4:15. Council members Harekesi, Turner, Cotter, and Martinez are present, as is Jill Critchfield, Mr. Mayor, and our recorder Brooke. Welcome, everyone. We have to start out with approval of the minutes from Committee of the Whole, September 6th, 2022. Any concerns, corrections, or a motion to approve?
I'd make a motion of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole for September 6, 2022.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. For discussion items, discussion on proposal to transfer Salt Lake County Parks to Murray City. We have Doug Hill, Kim Sorensen, and Martin Jensen presenting. Come on up.
Okay, I'm just going to introduce Martin Jensen and Patrick Reimer from Salt Lake County. They will be making the bulk of the presentation. Kim Sorensen will be here as a reference to any questions that you might have. I want to just point out that there will, of course, no votes taken in this meeting, but at some point in time, the county will need some direction from the city, the council, as to whether or not you want to pursue taking over the parks. They have to follow a process to have the parks, what's the term you use? Dispositioned. So in other words, surplus, so that the city can enter into an interlocal agreement. And so that'll be something that we'll probably have to come back to you at a future meeting to get some official action on it. Okay. But just so you're aware that this process is not going to take place in this meeting today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Martin and Patrick.
And I'll say welcome, Councilmember Dominguez, just for the record. Hello.
Thank you. My name's Martin Jensen. I'm the Director of Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation. Want to thank Doug and Kim for inviting us. This is Patrick Leary. Patrick Reimer is he was a county employee, so you were close in the Patricks. But Patrick Leary, he's my associate director within the Parks and Rec division. So why are we here discussing this? Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation is in its 76th year of existence. We are growing and changing as an organization, just as our valley is growing and changing. The focus of county parks and recreation has shifted and changed with the growth in population. We have focused on large, expensive rec centers and large regional parks. Building, operating, and maintaining regional parks 20 acres or larger that serve multiple cities and multiple jurisdictions. Back in the day, the county did build and maintain parks throughout the entire valley. A lot of them were in unincorporated parts of the county, and then as cities incorporated, the county still maintained them, and we worked hand in hand with the cities to operate and maintain them. Murray's always been a great partner. You guys are one of the few standalones in Parks and Recreation, and we know that you create and provide great services. Your Murray Park is beautiful, and it's something that we use as a benchmark within the valley to make sure that our parks are up to the same level. So that brings us to the two parks that we do have within Murray City, Riverview Park and Woodstock Meadows. Geez, it just left my mind there. So over the past 5 or 6 years, the county has begun an effort and has successfully transferred these parks to the local municipalities. In talking and meeting with the municipalities, these smaller, what we call pocket parks or neighborhood parks are better built, and they're designed to serve the local residents and neighborhoods. And the county, once again, is focusing on the large regional parks. As we've moved to transfer these type of parks to various cities, the cities that we've approached and talked to have accepted them and welcomed them pretty much with open arms. There definitely has been some questions as we've gone through it, but the cities have welcomed the local control and the ability to operate, maintain, and then program the parks as they see fit. We've transferred parks successfully in Cottonwood Heights, Mill Creek, West Valley, West Jordan, Kearns, Magna. These are all the smaller parks. So Riverview Park is one that is proposed to be transferred. I did want to make note the map that was provided to you in your packet, the outline of the park was wrong. It included the school district property and then the housing property. We love our surveyor's office, but they missed that one just slightly. So the map that you see, it is approximately 6 acres, 5840 south, 700 west in Murray. There is another small little parcel right here, right around the seminary building, just off the entrance. We did redo the tennis courts there recently. They're new. The pavilion is a little bit older, but still in fairly good condition. And this is what we call a passive recreation park. There's approximately 6 acres. This park was purchased and secured with Land Conservation Water Fund money from the federal government in the 70s, and we've built and maintained it since then. The other park, as you're familiar with, is Woodstock Meadows Park at 1060 East Highland Lake Drive in Murray. It's 9.46 acres. Once again, what we categorize as a neighborhood pocket park with passive recreation, meaning there's no programmed recreation. If you've been there, beautiful little walking park, lots of trees, lots of benches and picnic tables. The playground and restrooms, I'm the first one to admit, they're a little tired and could be refreshed. They're on our list to tackle at some point when the funding becomes available and when the priority is right. Over the past year or two, we have redone the boardwalk in the riparian area. That's done and complete. Our crews have gone in and thinned out the trees quite a bit most recently and tried to make sure that it's safe and welcoming and a great place. I walked through it Monday morning early. I got down there shortly after 8 o'clock and I was surprised. There was probably 15 people and couples walking through the park for some morning exercise in a crisp fall morning. So there's also the Temple Quarry rock that's there at the entrance of the park that was out of the Salt Lake Temple Quarry that sits there. This park was also purchased and acquired with Land Conservation Water Fund money in 1986. So really at this point, I mean, I've got a few photos of the parks. You've probably all been there. My photos are no different than some of the ones maybe that were in your packet, except for I'm trying to highlight all the nice stuff in them. The new restroom that was put in Riverview, and more or less that's where we're at. So we would like to transfer these parks to Murray City if they're interested in them. The expenses that we have spent on these parks over the past 3 years are here. I believe that information was sent to you as well. And there's just a couple things I wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on. So 2019 was it was a wet year, and so we didn't have to water as much. So water, fertilizer, and labor are the 3 biggest expenses that we have in the park, in both parks. So the costs in 2019 were down a little bit. 2020 and 2021 is when we made some of the improvements in the parks with the tennis courts and the boardwalk, also just trying to clean them up a little bit, and so the expenses have gone up a little bit, and those fluctuate slightly here and there. Parks make our communities better. We all know that. When COVID hit, these were the first places that people went to, some of the first places that I went with my own family. They improve our property values, improve our quality of life, and we're grateful for Murray. You guys have always been a great partner, and we want to continue to do that as we continue to provide services here in the Valley. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I could also talk about some of the steps, if you want, that would have to happen for them to be transferred.
I have several questions.
Sure.
I'm just 2 streets north of Riverview.
Okay.
I'm very, very aware of Riverview.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Murray since 85. So in 85, it used to be a BMX. Kim can say if I'm right, but it was a BMX. And so then I guess you guys came in and you bought it. And as a substitute teacher for Riverview, I would take the kids out in that park, and I wasn't impressed.
Mhm.
And the only improvement that I have seen is the sign that you put in, because the old one had bubble gum on it because the kids would stick their gum on there. So you put a new sign in, and a tennis court. I haven't seen any improvement on the basketball court. The pavilion, if it's going to come up to the standard of Murray's pavilions, it's not there. And the bathrooms are
Brand new.
questionable.
Brand new bathrooms. We
Okay.
build them to industrial standards. They will hold up to a lot coming in, but they are new.
Well, in one of your statements, it says that you had to go in to make sure the water flow was not backing up on it. So that gave me a little bit of concern on it. So I'm just curious why all of a sudden in 2019, 2020, and 2022, you're making these improvements. Where were you in the 80s, in the 90s? Where were you on those improvements? We get ZAP money. You guys get ZAP money, correct?
Mhm.
Zoo, Arts, and Parks. Did any of that money go into Riverview Park or in Meadow Park?
So I wasn't here in those decades, but what I can tell you is ZAP funding does subsidize our operations. So ZAP funding has gone in to operate and maintain the parks. We have a large list of parks, and this is one of the challenges that we face is having over 100 parks. There are some that don't get the attention that they should. And so we're trying to correct that, trying to make sure that we do get improvements in the parks, but it is a challenge. Transferring these to the municipalities is an option so that you can control them and you can control what goes into them.
Can you tell us the steps, how we get control of these parks? Are you wanting the city to buy them from you?
No, so they would just be transferred to the city, zero cost. So we would hold a public hearing to dispose of the parks, see if there's anybody that opposes it, make sure that we or anybody that supports it, listen to them. Then after the hearing, we would enter into an agreement. Based on the other agreements that we've done with the cities that I mentioned, Cottonwood Heights, Mill Creek, Taylorsville, West Jordan, West Valley, Kearns, the only requirements that the county asks is that they remain as parks. We don't want them to be sold and developed into something that is not a park. The land conservation water designation also requires that they remain as parks because they were paid for with federal land. So we're not asking for a purchase. We're not asking for anything in return other than taking care of them going forward.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
I just went and walked Woodstock last night, and it's so lovely. I love that. I love that park. The bathrooms are a little iffy, but you know
They're tired for sure. They could be replaced.
So I'm just wondering. I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I love the idea of us taking them over. It's just the expense. And it's going to cost us a lot to maintain them and bring them up to our standard. I'm just wondering, is there any way you could provide any funding with them? You know, for, like I said, to, you know, maybe do the path lights and you know, it's going to cost us a lot. Is there any way you could defray the costs of the upgrades we'd need to do?
So fair question. The other agreements where we have transferred these parks, we have not transferred any funds for them as well. And I anticipate that would be the same.
I'm just going to say Councilman Harekesi stepping out. Thank you.
Sure. The way that the county would support them is there are some other funding opportunities, either through the ZAP fund, which is only available once every 10 years, and it's usually for larger size projects. But the yearly tourism, recreation, culture, and convention tax, the track tax, is a very viable option where you could seek one-time funding for capital improvements to make some of the upgrades, lighting, sidewalks, restrooms, playgrounds, anything like that. Absolutely. And the size and scope of these projects, if there were to be upgrades, would be perfect, basically. The track fund gets some very large requests, and these would, from my experience, would slide into that program very well. Now, with that, the track process, and Kim can talk to you about it in detail. It is a competitive process, and you have to meet some basic requirements, but Murray City would meet them. And so I would encourage you to seek funding through track. Ongoing funding that we have allocated to these would not be available.
Okay, and then ZAP would be appropriate, that funding, although it's probably not up for, what, 8 years or?
2025 is the next time that if the ZAP tax is reauthorized by voters in 2024, there would be a call for projects in 2025.
Oh,
And then funding would be available in 2026. Those projects are usually a little bit larger in size and scope than these. Doesn't mean you could not apply for them, and sometimes a smaller project may get funded and filling in some of the gaps of the bigger ones. So I don't want to dissuade you from seeking ZAP funding, but just realize it's one time, or it's once every 10 years.
right. It's always been one of my issues is ZAP, that, Murray is so independent that often we get overlooked. And so that's always been one of my concerns with that.
Sure.
So anyway, anything you could help us with, we would appreciate it. I think it's a really good idea if we can afford it. And so, Kim, if we can afford the upkeep and the maintenance, and that would be my concern. So anyway, I would like to just ask the county, anything you can do to help us would be really appreciated if that's what we decide to do.
And I can take that back to our elected officials. Obviously, I don't have the authority to say, yep, we're going to do that,
Right.
but
I know.
I'm happy to take that back.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, do you have any idea how much it's going to cost? Have you estimated anything on a new pavilion for Riverview? And
Yeah. I think it's in the
Yeah, we have
packet.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Councilman
won't-
Turner, in your packet, you have an estimated cost of what we would cost yearly for maintenance. And then also, I believe it was a 5-year CIP project list.
700,000 to 2.3 million was the range, I believe.
Yes, and that includes, as Martin had said, new playgrounds, restroom, I think a playground at Riverview as well, some area lighting, and then just some general maintenance. As Martin said, the county focuses on large parks, whereas we focus on smaller, and in response to that, we take care of the smaller parks probably better than they do, and because they're focused on large parks. Is that fair?
Thank you. Rosalba, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a few. I guess my question is kind of a twofold question. Is what were the metrics really? Is it the smaller parks you guys are looking at to then transfer over to municipalities? Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there any conversation for the future? Like, would we be seeing you guys again in the near future or long future saying, hey, actually, we can't maintain the golf course, or we can't maintain another part, or the, behind the ice rink, and you guys take this over? Is that something we should look forward to in the future, or?
I would say no.
Okay.
I mean, we've been around for 76 years. We've only transferred parks just in the most recent past, and they've all been these small, what we call pocket parks or neighborhood parks.
Okay.
So if you look at the National Rec and Park Association and their standards of various sizes of parks, and you look at our 2015 master plan as well, this is what the county council and mayor adopted, saying this is where we are going to focus our efforts, are these large regional parks. And we began divesting our interest of these smaller ones in 2015. McRiley, it's not going anywhere.
Just stating.
Lots of, yep,
We would
good, fair
take it,
question.
I'm
Lots
sure.
of reasons why it's not. One, we love the golf course. We just invested $5 million into it. It's also a important watershed and
Mhm.
aquifer for Salt Lake City. Murray Ice, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We would
Yeah,
love to
that's okay.
expand the building, and we've just committed $6.4 million to improving the fields behind Murray Ice, and we're kicking off that project this week as well. So, we are committed to making improvements within the city of Murray that will benefit Murray residents and even hopefully drive some tax dollars into the city boundaries as well.
I mean, those are all great. So thank you for those updates. My next question is, I guess that was okay. So the next question has to do with funding, and maybe this is a Brenda question, but isn't ZAP funding based off of population, and we have to apply for it, and there's different tier levels?
No, it's so ZAP collects 1/10 of 1%, so 1 penny on every $10 spent of sales tax.
Of sales tax.
Yes, and then it's distributed from a park standpoint. It's only distributed once every 10 years, and the reality is it's not actually the ZAP monies that are distributed. The county chooses to release a general obligation bond and use the ZAP tax as collateral to pay the bond back. The ZAP tax is actually part of my annual funding that subsidizes parks and recreation services throughout the valley. So we provide services throughout the valley. The art side of it's a different equation, and I'm not an expert on that and
Okay.
don't want to
That's okay.
speak on
No, that's okay. And then as far as, and maybe this is you guys again, where are we at with impact fees? Could that help subsidize some of the cost with any projects?
So, excuse me, impact fees could not subsidize the projects. And the reason for that is when we did our park master plan, which we did before the impact fee was put in, the county parks as well as school grounds was included in the total acreages for parks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. That was it. Thank you so much. And those are all my questions. Thank you guys for all that information.
All right. I just say I love the idea of us taking on these parks, and that I don't like having small public spaces that Murray's not responsible for within our boundaries, because the public doesn't understand that and assumes it's ours anyways. Though I do definitely have concerns about absorbing some of the larger financial impacts of that, especially on the CIP level. I know our Parks Department has a really thoughtful CIP plan of all the parks that they're going to be doing improvements on, but these were not included in that long-term plan. And so I don't want our other ones that are in need of replacement to get bumped from this list because of like bringing in these parks. So I'm hearing a lot of support for asking for financial support. Some of the things you suggested are grants that are already available but aren't coming in to help with these specific projects, which is a concern to me. But so I would definitely be in support of asking the county council to look at what funds they can designate to this. Yeah. Oh, please.
So question I have is if these are dedicated in perpetuity for public recreation, what's the county's alternative if the city says no, we aren't able to take them over?
That's a fair question. We'll keep them and continue to maintain them. And they will fall into our long-term capital improvement plans as well. And they will, the challenge, and to be quite honest then, is they have to compete with the 100 other parks that we have for funding and priorities. And so
Alternatively, if Murray does take it on and then at some point cannot continue to maintain it, what's Murray's alternative?
they would revert back to the county.
Would the county have to, at that point, vote to take them back, or can we just leave them on your doorstep? Like, what does that process look like?
It's a good question, and I'd have to defer to my attorneys, but
I guess that would be negotiated, right, in the
yeah,
agreement?
It's part,
Well, you're gonna,
it's part of the
it'll come with
interlocal.
some condition,
Yeah.
Sure.
and that is that you are required to keep it as an outdoor park. I don't know if there's other conditions that come along with that from whoever this money comes from. I think there probably are, but I don't know what they would be.
Yeah, it just has to stay as what the park was described when the funding was provided in the 70s and 80s. So they were described basically as they are. We can make improvements to them and change some of the amenities in there, but they have to stay.
And if you choose not to, if the city didn't take them over and you keep them, they won't revert back to anybody else if you can't maintain them
No, the county will continue to maintain them.
because they have to or they choose to.
It's part of our mission, and we choose to, not because we have to. So, I mean, we could turn them into something else, and there is a process to move the Land Conservation Water Fund designation off of the property. It's a very lengthy process and one that we would not be interested in, because my job is to be a steward of parks and open space. And while these are small parks, and I've been tasked focusing on large regional parks and trails that connect them, they're still parks and they're still open space and important.
I have one last question. Which, I guess, Kim, what's your perspective on this? Is this something other than financially that in terms of staff, like, are we equipped to take this on? I mean, I don't know.
So that's a loaded question,
I know.
but let me try and answer that. So as I look at the two parks, there are two different parks completely. Woodstock parks, if you go up on Woodstock Park and you observe the people using that, that is a neighborhood park. It's neighbors that are walking to that park. I think there's some teenagers that like to drive over and use the park for Frisbee and stuff like that. So it's, whereas Riverview Park is more like Hidden Village or Southwood or some of our parks along the parkway, where it's a park that has a pavilion and has a large playground, a large grass area, and people will drive to that park and use it. They would reserve the pavilions. Right now, the county has the pavilion, but I don't believe you formally reserve it. It's just open. So that park, and Martin mentioned maybe earlier before our meeting, some pickleball courts would be nice rather than tennis court.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. that
Hard
would-
sale.
So my opinion is that we could certainly improve the parks, and the residents would benefit from the city owning the parks, because the level of service and the level of maintenance would be higher, but it does come at a cost.
And I think, lastly, I just want to state this. I think this is a great opportunity for us to continue to have open space, which I've been a bit of an advocate for, and really bring in what our standards are, right? Like pickleball and our parks get used incredibly well within Murray. And I think this could be a great opportunity to transition residents to utilize these parks in a different way, and probably really just take ownership of them themselves. I hear all the time that we need better open spaces, we need more recreation, and we need more opportunities for our children and for pickleball. Of course, more pickleball courts is what I always hear. So I think for me personally, I know it comes with a cost, and I'm sure, like we do with everything else, we can figure it out as we go. But I definitely would like to maybe even, challenge or ask the county council, is there any opportunities for, if we do make these transfers, could you upgrade the bathroom or whatever it is it may need for us to make that transfer over prior to doing that? Because I think, I think at one of them, I guess it's Riverview, right? That's a little bit more dilapidated, and a pavilion's a pavilion, but as far as the safety amenities, let's get it to a safer standard and see where we can go from there. That's where I'm at.
You happened to say if we didn't take them from the county, you would see something else in there. What did you mean by something else? The word something else.
The parks would stay. The only change that I would propose, that my staff has proposed, is there is a old softball diamond in Riverview.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny the way that it was laid out. People before me did it, but the outfield is on the school property. And I know this, the school, I'm sure there's an agreement somewhere, a handshake agreement that, hey, come and use that, but it hasn't been used for a long time, you can tell.
Yeah.
And so I would take that out and I would leave the tennis courts and then put in some pickleball courts. Is what I would propose.
And would you improve the pavilion?
I like the pavilion and I think it's historic. It might need a little bit of love, but I would not rip it down. I would potentially improve it. And there's like old barbecue pits and things in there that we don't use anymore. There's horseshoe pits. We're pulling them out of all our parks. That fad's gone. There's the basketball courts could be most definitely upgraded. We've partnered with the Utah Jazz in the past to improve some of those. So, I mean, we would not change the park. We would just enhance and improve it. But it will potentially take some time. I'd point to the current track applications. Encourage you to go get a list of them. There's cities that have submitted applications for pickleball courts and playground improvements and very similar things that we're all talking about.
Kim, I have a question. Riverview is joined with Murray School District, that park. Is any of that property going to be turned over to Riverview, like the old baseball that he was saying?
So the softball field or baseball field, if you draw a line down home plate through third base, that's the property line. Years ago when the softball field, it was actually a baseball field was put in, the city and the school district put in the grandstands, and the school used to use that for their practice facility, and then Babe Ruth baseball used to use it for games. Babe Ruth baseball doesn't have the numbers anymore, and the school district doesn't use it anymore. But I wouldn't see any of that going to the school or vice versa, the school going to the park.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kim?
I'm with Diane. I would like some money from the county. I'm with Diane.
Go ahead,
I
Diane.
think we need some of that.
Well, and once again, I will take that request back, and I just being forthright, the 7 or so agreements that we've done in the past, I think most of them have asked, and there has not been any transfer of funds.
Oh, really? They have asked, and
Yes.
huh?
So
Interesting.
I will 100% take that back and share that with them, but we have not transferred any funds as part of the agreements.
Kim, if we were to absorb these, would we need additional staff?
So our park superintendent, Bruce Holyoke, who's with us today, has looked at that, and we would need one part-time employee for each park, not 40 hours a week. The total was $36,000 a year. So it wouldn't require a lot of additional staff.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
We were told we needed to give direction. Is this enough direction? Are we specific enough? What are we looking for?
Well, I'm going to ask for GL's help on this, but I think what I would like to see is a resolution that we would bring back to you in a council meeting so that we actually have an official vote. We have it on record that can go to the county council.
Okay.
And I see GL Dundee's head the same way. So, yeah. So what my sense is, what I'm hearing tonight and seeing with your head shaking and so forth, is that you would like us to move forward with that resolution. So that's what we will plan on doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you. All right. Next up, Public Works Department. We've got Russ giving us a report. Hi, Russ. Yeah, wherever you're comfortable. Stand, sit. Sounds amazing. Make yourself comfortable. Roll on up.
This isn't HDMI, is it? I might have to plug it over there. You have an adapter? Or is there one here? Back in the lab? I could jump on that, I guess. I think I got a thumb drive. I can log in again. Okay, here we go. Got her. All right. Well, I'm not too sure on what the report should. I watched a couple people do it, so this is what I went with, guys. So this is a picture of most of the public works people there in front of our lounge. Well, we call it the lounge, but really not. So you've probably heard that term before. So, but yeah, that's these guys.
How
So-
many? 73?
Yeah, so there's 7 divisions. We have 73 employees there.
And they were all there. That's
There's a few missing, but most of them. So
pretty impressive.
yeah, you can see the breakup of engineers got 7.5, streets 18, and that streets, solid waste, stormwater. The 33, the 3, and the 34 is the street and stormwater superintendents. That's what breaks that up. And then engineering, half, and then the water has another half, and that's my position. So it's broke up through a couple divisions. I don't know if you guys have seen these 2 ladies. They're wonderful. They're great. They keep the office running well, answering all the phone calls and questions, and paying invoices, making sure that we're on track, processing P cards. ABOP's huge. That keeps them pretty busy. Social media, dumpsters, greenway. So they just take care of just about everything that comes through there for all of us. So engineering, they do a lot of stuff also. You can see some of the pictures there. One's Cottonwood Street when they was building the bridge. The bottom one there is when they was pulling out the walkover bridge to Murray High School. And the other one is when we replaced the Salt Lake Canal across 6400 South. So, but they do a lot of streets and right-of-way projects, sidewalk, ADA, subdivision reviews, plan reviews, building plan reviews, floodplain monitoring, just road cut permits, land disturbance, assist the streets in design and construction, and so they're a huge part, and they do an excellent job. And then you have streets that go out, roadway maintenance, crack sealing, patching, milling, paving, curb and gutter, concrete, traffic control, snow removal, big one through the winter, we all know that, and they do an awesome job with that. With snow removal, it shows, you know, if I have this water, do you? I'm a little thirsty. Sorry. But with snow removal, it pretty much takes almost all the 73 people. The water, sewer, storm, streets, even when we got guys out, engineering guys come in, some of the inspectors, they still have CDLs, so we use them where we can. When someone's done. You guys can't hear me well? Oh, okay. So just know that I might not highlight that in here, but it takes all of us to clear the roads, and we do an amazing job. Some people a little ticked off, but at least our roads are clear and people are safe. So Solid waste. We have ACE that picks up our garbage and recycling from our houses and our buildings, but we still have green waste trailers. And when the green waste trailers are picked up and delivered, we end up with a large pile of trees. We hire Diamond to come in and grind them up, and then we give free wood chips out on Fridays from noon to 3, which is a great program. It's a recycling program also. So it's worked good, and it's still working good. We've actually been open every Friday this summer because it's been that busy. Usually we shut down every other week because there's 2 guys that come, or 2 cars or trucks. And
How much do you think you guys produce in wood chips?
tonnage wise,
Tonnage wise, yeah.
1,000
Guesstimate.
1,000 ton.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've picked up wood chips there a few times, and I'm like,
Yeah. There's a
there's
huge
still
pile
so much.
that we just ground again, so we have another large heap. So
Wow.
come on down, we'll give you some more when you get rid of them.
Oh no.
Everybody. Okay. Tell your friends.
We put it in the whole backyard to like resettle our yard, and it was great. But now we're like, we're over it.
Yeah, I got you there.
Russ.
So, but
Russ.
yeah,
Okay, so east of 9th East is Wooford,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how often do the contracts come up? How often do we recontract with ACE and Wooford, and how does that work?
usually every 5 years. Right now, we are on a 3-year contract, and we're already into the first year. And we can renegotiate after the third year because of the fact that, and this is why I did this contract like this last time, is because in 2024, we should have a transfer station in Sandy, which we won't have to long haul to Transjordan. We can go into the transfer station, they'll transfer. So driving trucks out there every day won't have to go to Sandy. So that price could come down for us because it's a closer haul. And we're part of that. We'll be part of that because we are part owners of Transjordan. So we'll be part owners in this transfer station also. And so we will be paying truck time for them, but we won't be paying, our contract should drop down because their drive time is going to be a quarter of it.
That's great. Okay, so then it'll be a couple of years before we'll do
Yes, and
another
we
contract.
we reached out to Pam when we did rebid this. Just didn't work for them.
Okay.
So, yeah. But with solid waste, it's only made up of 2 people, 2.33. But they do a lot of dumpsters and leaf disposal. The ABOP site's part of it, recycling education. But it's only 2 guys. They repair all the garbage cans, they break, they deliver to the residents if they need a new can or a brand new house. It's finally done, and they sign up for utilities, and they deliver that. So,
So we do that, not ACE?
No, we do that. We own our own carts.
Okay.
So we do all the repairs and deliveries.
And that's below 9th East?
Below 9th East, yes.
Okay. East side is all done with Wooford?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So next would be Stormwater. They're a utility. They're a fund. You guys, I'm sure, are aware of that. But most of their jobs, street sweeping, drain line maintenance, cleaning the lines, cleaning the catch basins. We do a lot of pre and post construction inspections. Part of our management plan that we have for the UPDS. Flood response. All the data you're going to see on the next slide was collected. Most of that was collected by me back in the day. A lot of it was, and put into GIS. Like I said, there's 107 miles of pipe that we're over. That's Murray City's pipes. But there's a total of 240, which is private lines, irrigation lines, just any other drainage structure that's in our boundaries. This goes up above the 9th East area. lots of irrigation up there. And there's 20 miles of irrigation just in Tanner. We have an agreement that we have to assist them in maintenance because we use their lines to drain our roads. So just understand that. There's 4,100 structures that need to be cleaned and 106 water quality features that are out there. So just a little bit on the stormwater. But so then you got the water. Water production and delivery, water quality testing, conservation, water rights, backflow, water line maintenance and repair, metering, water meters and reading them. And then they have 22 and a half people that they are working with now. They have 194 miles of pipe, bunch of water meters. Brendan knows that.
Wow.
19 wells and 8 springs. It's a big system. And it goes all the way up to the mouth of the canyon. So at McGee, one of the springs up there. So the wastewater, they deal with Central Valley a lot. We have representation, which is Mayor Hells and Ben Ford, who represent us there. They do line inspections. They raise and fix manholes that are broken. So they're strictly more maintenance than repair and installation. So and it's a lot to keep up with the sewer. There's a lot there. They have 135 miles of pipe that they have to maintain. 9,600 service connections, and 3 lift stations, and 2,100 manholes. That's a lot to get in and clean. So these guys are busy. Then we have fleet services.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What's a manhole?
Excuse me.
I mean, I think I know, but.
The round circle.
Oh, okay.
It's in.
Yeah. So in the streets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they pump them up, drop their cleaner in it, run the lines, suck them out.
Okay.
And maybe it should be called a person hole, but I don't know.
No. And I don't mean it by that. I don't mean it that way, but I just meant like identifying what is a manhole.
What's its function?
What's its function and within the city?
It's an access hole to
the sewer.
Yep. To access the pipeline.
It's how the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles get into their home.
I mean that, and definitely stormwater drain. But yeah, no, thank you.
I should have clarified. So fleet services, there's 400 vehicles out there, and 130 other pieces of equipment, backhoes, loaders, graders. There's a bunch out there. So these guys take care of all of our police vehicles, everybody's equipment. The only thing they really don't work on is the apparatuses for the fire department. They might change a tire, do something like that, but they really don't work on the fire trucks so much. But emission testing, I mean, that's going to start this week, and I think they'll have maybe 2 months off because there's so many vehicles to get through. They got to do a couple of them a week, to get through them all. So, but the state and I am, and they do this with 4 employees, and we just hired the new one. I think it was put in today that was interviewed yesterday. So, inventory control specialist, and so, yeah, these guys got a big job. So that's Public Works, and there's a whole bunch more. These pictures we're taking on last year for Public Works Week. I think it was put into the social media. You guys might have seen it pop up here and there, but that's Public Works. Any questions?
Any questions?
When are we going to start changing to electric vehicles? I'm sorry.
We don't have the power to no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if there's anything I can do, we've started a fund and we're going to add to it, but anything we can do to get alternative vehicles into our
Fleet.
into our fleet. I think the time is we need to start doing that.
I think it's a good idea for inspectors and you know,
Mhm.
people that just need to get
Support people.
get through town. But
And there are a lot
there's
of
not,
those.
they don't have enough power to pull equipment around. They don't make, and eventually they probably will. But right now you can't hook up to a trailer, throw a skid steer on it, and go up to your job. And most of the guys I'm talking about, these guys are in big trucks. They need equipment.
Right.
But like in engineering, you could probably buy an electric vehicle for some of them, for the inspectors. And, you know, there's some other ways we can look at this. I'm not throwing it out the window. We can purchase these.
I'm just going to keep nudging
Okay,
you. You know that.
You just keep talking.
Keep nudging.
Russ, I think you need an electric car.
I just bought a,
Yeah.
no, how you did?
No, I mean, I guess one of if we do go that route, right, and looking at the cost for those who are not lugging things around, I think that might be a great place to start.
If the mayor
That's what
wants
I'm
to
hearing.
buy me one, I'll drive one.
Perfect.
Amazing.
There we go.
Excellent.
There's
All
a
right.
workaround of some sort.
Always.
Thank
Nudge, nudge.
Any other questions? I'll just do a shout out to your social media team. I always appreciate the recycling reminders of like what to do and what not to. They're really clear and easy to understand. So shout out to them. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, the streets. I mean, you guys do a great job. So thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that really, since how long you been in this position, Russ?
Oh, maybe a month, 2 months.
2 months. Really, I've seen a lot of and heard a lot of compliments about sidewalks getting done, things
yeah.
that
Yeah.
I hadn't seen done for a long time. And Russ has been amazing. He jumps on them. Anyway, and I went to a retirement luncheon the other day, and I couldn't believe how many people came up to me and said, "Great choice with Russ." So a huge compliment to Russ. He's doing a great job, and he knows Murray City like the back of his hand. So it's been beneficial.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're awesome.
I've had the same. So thank you so much. I think you're doing a great job, and this is it. You know, people really admire and respect the work that you're doing because you've done the work. You've been, I'm sure, in many of these jobs, and so you understand. And you probably, I remember at was it the safety fair? I think you guys were there. And they were like, I'm sure Russ knows. Russ can tell you off the back of it, you know, like he knows. He knows how many mileage is X, Y, and Z. And so it was a great compliment. It's a great compliment to you and your staff. And I'm sure we will have many, many years of just great productivity. And I really do appreciate that.
No,
For the
thank
city.
you. I did. And I'm
She really
proud of
Many,
Wasn't-
many.
drove it
Many
At
home.
least 4.
Wasn't your first job snow plowing?
you. Here?
Yeah.
First job, honestly, when I started was painting the lines and arrows. But I did snowplow
Yeah.
that winter also. I've
And
always
how
done
long have you
snowplowing.
been with Murray?
35 years as of September 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right. Well, and you're up next. Do you? It says you have a buddy for it, but are you just presenting?
Yeah,
There.
Lynn's on vacation. So
Good for Lynn. Okay. Well, we'll let you take over for the interlocal agreement.
Okay, so this is usually passed every year. We have to go through this. Now it's going to be a 6-year term, which is going to be better for all of us. So this media campaign is to educate people on stormwater issues and illicit discharge and detection. And so we opted years ago to, when we developed the stormwater utility, not to hire a education and outreach person. We got on with the Salt Lake Coalition, Salt Lake County Coalition, and back then it was around $5,000 a year. And I did forget some trinkets I had. I left them on my desk. I was so worked up I didn't know. I just really forgot them. But
Looking so forward to coming and meeting with us, right?
yeah. So I'll drop them off, and you guys can. They're just a dog bag that you can roll out. Just things that we all live downstream slogan. You guys have seen the droplet. You've seen the commercials. you've been to the movies, you'll see the, used to be Dr. Strange water. Now it's, droplet. And so it just gets people out there. Usually every year we go to the zoo for the water quality fair. Usually the fourth graders come up, Murray School District, Granite School District, Jordan Valley, or is that Jordan School District? All these kids go up there, about fourth graders. We teach them. It's a fun day, but we use these guys for all of our education outreach for stormwater. This will be $7,700. This it's based on our cap. How many our population, like 15 cents per person. So this is nothing new. We've done it for years. So any questions about that? No?
No.
How much is is there an increase? No. Cost?
No, it's about the same.
It's about the same.
We went up a little bit in population, but it was only 15 cents
Right.
Per person.
where they're pulling their data from. So
From the sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just making sure. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Russ.
hey, thank you guys for having me. It was
All right.
amazing.
Was almost painless, right?
Russ wants to know if we can do this every other week.
Absolutely. We will make time for you, Russ. Every council meeting.
Every week.
All right.
You, Russ.
All right, Zach and Jared, we're going to talk about an ordinance amending Chapter 17 of the Murray City Code relating to land use appeals and variances. Hello.
Hello. All right, let me get this going. All right. So I've been working on a text amendment with the attorney's office, mostly with Bryant, to kind of update and streamline our appeals process. The land use code currently has a lot of, so if you see here on this main page, the different chapters that address different types of appeals and appeal timeframes, things like that. Also, as I usually come to you guys, the state changed something, so I'm here addressing the state as well. One of those first things is that a directly aggrieved person was what was in our code, and there was no definition for that. And so we've adopted the state's language where, and I'll just read it verbatim, a person other than a land use applicant who owns real property adjoining the property that is the subject of a land use application or land use decision, or will suffer a damage different in kind than or an injury distinct from that of the general community as a result of the land use decision. To put that into kind of layman's terms, so let's take, I can't think of a property off the top of my head, wingers. Let's just do wingers, for example. Say like they came in and applied to do something else that was permitted, or no, conditional. Let's do conditional. There was a conditional use, and people came out, weren't very happy about it, and wanted to appeal it. Currently, anybody could appeal it. Somebody that lives off Winchester Street didn't like it, they could appeal it. This new one that the state has implemented is that needs to be somebody adjoining the property, or will have an impact that is different than neighboring properties as well. That was a state change in those appeals processes. So we also are adopting that per state stuff. So next one is clearer text. So we had one section that addressed appeals and variances, and that was kind of confusing to explain to the citizens when we would kind of discuss that with them, what an appeal was and what a variance was. The state language on variances are very strict and very rigid. You have to meet 5 tests, and if you don't meet all 5 tests, you don't get granted the variance. And an appeal is different. That's you have to look at that differently. So we separated those out so that those have their own sections so that it's much more streamlined. The requirements are clear. Also, we removed conflicting language. There were a few different places in chapters that said that you had 30 days, didn't stipulate what your 30 days were, 30 calendar days, and some were as short as 10 days. And also, shot clocks, it would say, after a written decision or after the vote was made. There were a bunch of different things that made, I can't even think of the word. I'm just ranting. So we've streamlined this down to 10 calendar day shot clock from the date of the written decision. There is a
quick question. Written decision after, it's gone to the planning commission, then the city or city council, or
so the stuff in the city council typically, I don't think it can be appealed.
Okay, so
legislative actions, and correct me if I'm wrong, GL, but I don't think your decisions can be appealed at the city level. I think they go to court level, so that's different. So these land use decisions, they're conditional use permits, design reviews.
So anything that comes in front of the planning
commission and doesn't move on.
Just making sure.
And then, so
thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and the written decision part of that. So we issue these things called findings of fact for conditional use permits, for example. That's the official written decision. So that typically is about 2 weeks prior, 2 or 3 weeks, depending on when the planning commission is being held. We typically turn that around pretty quickly. So then that shot clock hits from when they're approved. So when they've approved those findings of fact, that's when that 10-day would start. So you really kind of have almost a month, a few weeks for sure. That's when we would start calculating that. Also, yes, per state law, we have to allow for the exceptions of a 30-day appeal for reasonable accommodation. That means that if somebody applies for like a group home or is there any other reason to do a reasonable accommodation? Okay, group homes and historic preservation authority regarding a land use decision. We don't really have anything regarding a preservation authority, but that's codified in state law. So we have to make sure that that's in there as well. So Planning Commission held a meeting on September 1st of this year. 23 notices were sent to affected entities, and the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to forward a recommendation of approval. Findings, there are like 4 different fonts on here. I apologize. So the text has been carefully considered just to make sure that we're providing the clear text for our citizens and businesses, things like that. Also addresses conflicts in the land use ordinance to make it easier to read, and it is consistent with the goal and mission of Murray to guide growth, promote prosperity, and sustain a high quality of life. And yeah, like I said, the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval, and we are recommending that you do so as well. Questions, comments, concerns?
Any questions? No. All right. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Always good to get in line
That
with the
one's
state
nice and easy.
when we have to. So it's good.
Cool.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no objections, we are adjourned until the 6:30 council meeting. Thank you.